Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Alpha Male Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Heather Krause.
And I'm our co-host, Greg Krause. Thanks for joining us today. And we're going to back up on a topic today because we got so many questions relating to this. We figured, and part of it's the school teacher in me, we don't want to move forward with information if you don't comprehend what we're trying to go over already in the past. So we're going to break things down a little bit more to help you along. And the reason being, once again, we could talk all we want, but if you're not getting anything out of it, you're missing what Heather and I are trying to do.
Yes, that, and we absolutely love the topic of diet. So it's kind of a combo of both on why we are bringing it up once again. So with that, we really wanted to kind of, again, start with the basics and break it down, but give you guys enough knowledge so you understand like what every macro does. Like, why do you eat fats? Why do you eat protein? Why do you eat carbs? And so you can also kind of spot when you're, because there's so much like diet information out there.
And I'm going to back you for 1 second. When you say macro, what do you mean?
Well, before that, I'm gonna cut you off, and I'm gonna say that the reason is like we want to bring this up and really like pound it in is because this information, because with so much information out there, I think it's so hard for people to understand, like even know, be able to differentiate like what is bull crap and what is an actual legitimate diet. I mean, they have the cabbage soup diet, they have, the Mediterranean. It's very hard if you don't know how the macros and stuff work to figure out like, should I waste my time on the cabbage diet? Which the answer is no. But, we want you to be able to know that when you're browsing the internet, looking for, just more information. So.
And I guess just to go along with this, I could give you the water diet and you would lose weight because obviously you're taking in less calories.
Yeah, temporarily though.
Right.
You temporarily
That's the
lose
key
weight.
thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Okay. Oh, so then to answer your question, so to kind of like start it off, with macros, like what is a macro? And basically, and some people might have heard, if it fits your macro diet, which there is some truth to the concept. It's basically a macro is you have 3, technically 4 if you count alcohol, but you have protein, fat, carbohydrates, and like I said, then alcohol. And yeah, which it's kind of like an asterisk one where it's like, do you count it? Do you not? But it is in there because you can consume it, and it does have its special calorie per gram number and how it works. So we'll be kind of bringing that just, closing up today's podcast with mentioning it because I think alcohol can be really confusing to people when you bring it up with diet because they don't have calories on, alcohol bottles. And I think just a lot of people don't know where to place it. And so, but getting back to like the main ones, the one that are really beneficial to you, it's protein, carbs, and fat.
Let's start with protein, since to me that's the most important one.
Yes, I would definitely say it is the most important because it plays a part in, building muscle, your skin, your nails, your hair. I mean, muscle, like tendon. I mean, it's everything. It kind of it's the building blocks.
And you could live without the carbohydrate, but we'll get into that down the road.
Yes.
But that's why, once again, you ain't lasting too long without protein.
No. And you're definitely not getting the body that you want with no protein. That's like another thing. So besides survival, I mean, we're all pretty much okay that we don't have to worry about survival when we have food everywhere. So it kind of, then you start bringing up, okay, what is everybody like focus on? And it's the body that they want. And you're going to only get that with protein. So.
Right. And this is why protein's so important, because you need to make sure you have complete protein. And keeping it as basic as possible, you have to make sure it has all the amino acids made up in that food that you eat. And one of the foods that definitely have something like that, for example, would be like red meat,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
where red meat has all the proteins. So that would fit into what we need to do to build our bodies, maintain our bodies, whatever it is we're trying to do.
Yeah, because so when it's complete, you don't have to worry about supplementing with anything else because it's got everything and your body utilizes it in its complete manner. But now there's some things that are incomplete.
Right, which luckily over the centuries, cultures have done to make sure when they have an incomplete protein, so it's missing some of the 20 some amino acids.
And they're usually plant based. That are I don't think there's no
Right.
meat that is incomplete.
No, your meat, your fish, poultry,
Your dairy is complete.
dairy. So those are all good ones that cover everything for you and I.
Yeah, because it's like, and how you mentioned with like cultures, like rice and beans are good. Because when you have an incomplete one, you have to pair it with another incomplete or complete one to kind of fill in whatever thing that the incomplete's lacking.
Whatever aminos are lacking,
Yes.
yeah. And this is where cultures have become malnourished because they weren't taking incomplete proteins. But the ones that have survived have managed to do it, like you said, with rice
Yeah.
and beans.
Well, because this is where vegetarians or vegans run into a lot. I mean, one of many problems that they run into because we are just a disclaimer on this podcast. We do not endorse being a vegetarian or vegan unless you have. I can understand if you don't believe in the killing of animals and you want to have, die on that horse. Like
Right.
that's,
That
I
is
understand. But if you're doing it because you think it's healthy, it's not the case. And that can be a different podcast in itself. But one of the many problems being vegetarian or vegan is that a lot of people don't take the time and really understand how to pair food together. And then they run into, so then they end up malnourished, just like you said with some of those cultures. And because it does take a lot of work to understand what needs to be paired together.
Right. And you have to eat them together
Yes.
or within a reasonable time to make sure you have it.
Yes.
Now, that brings up a point, I guess we should bring that up. Got a question asking us, well, what's the difference between BCAAs
Mm-hmm.
and EAS, essential amino acids, EAAs, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
EAAs.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the easiest way to say it. But do you want to touch that one or do you want me?
I can, and you can kind of jump in if I mess up anything. But so when you go to like your vitamin shop or health food store, you will see both on, the shelves. And well, you can take both, and there's different arguments for both of them. The essential amino acids is basically what it sounds like. It's all of them. So you're having a complete like protein as you're eating them because you have all the amino acids in there, and they not only help build muscle, but they preserve the muscle that you have.
Right, because if you were to eat something like rice that isn't complete, if you took essential amino acids, you can make that a complete protein source for yourself.
Yeah,
Where if you took the BCAA,
which is not complete.
right, it does not cover the ones that your body essential. Your body cannot make those from other food you have eaten.
Mm-hmm.
Branched chains are just the extra throwing ones of the 20
Mm-hmm.
amino acids that we get from our food.
Yeah,
And we're just trying to keep this simple. I'm not trying to make it super sophisticated because why?
yeah,
As long as you know how to do this, you're going to be successful.
yeah. We really don't like to use like a lot of medical terms or big doctor sounding words because it makes it complicated.
We've been in enough of those conferences.
Yeah, and it seems like it drags on, and we just believe in more layman's terms you guys understand, because the reality is like how your body works and health, like getting healthy and getting fit, really isn't that complicated. I think it just sounds complicated once you start to add a lot of big words, and your body basically runs on a system that's pretty predictable, and if I just think people would be a lot healthier in this country if they explain stuff in layman's terms, just how your body works in general. You would understand why you need vitamins, why you need to eat this, why you need to eat that. Instead, I think a lot of people just listen to experts or what they see on the internet, and they just try to follow stuff, and they end up just running in circles because they don't. A lot of the stuff that you see online, like, it can be true, but only in certain situations. So that's where I think it can get frustrating if you don't understand the concepts behind it.
Right. And with summer coming up, there's so many things online now. Get your summer body, follow this, follow that.
And do it quick, like in 4 weeks.
Right. And what they do is they starve you. And yes, the scale goes down. But part of that is water weight. Part of that is muscle tissue.
Which you do not want to go away.
And remember, the more muscle you have, the more calories you burn.
So your metabolism's getting slower than the more muscle that eats away because you're starving. So keep that in mind.
So once you get off of the water diet or whatever it is that you're trying to talk into, and you go back to eating how you used to, you're going to gain all this weight back, and you're going to be fatter. And our goal isn't to get you fatter, it's to make you slowly change your body type so you can live with it, enjoy life, and be healthy.
Because everything that we recommend, it's to get you the body that you want, like how to look the way you want, not necessarily have the scale show a certain number. Because I think that that's very important, where some of these crash diets may temporarily show you the number that you want. It's not going to last long, but you're not going to look as good as you thought you were going to look, because you're not going to have that muscle, like the muscle mass that in your head you were probably picturing that you were going to have.
Right, and just as an example, back when we were both competing, we would follow a diet for 12, 14, 16 weeks, and we would get very lean and shredded. But I'll tell you what, we could not go another 10, 15 weeks after that and still remain healthy.
No.
Because you took your body fat to too low a percentage, where once you get in those single digits, it makes it tough. And once again, then we would adjust our eating to fill back up again a little bit, with not wanting to put on body fat, but just to eat back to what where we be healthy again.
And with you bringing up bodybuilding, I also do want to kind of point out, and granted this is an extreme kind of example, but it goes to show you on why, crash dieting is not the best, is that because a lot of people, when they crash diet, they'll do it for a certain point in time, and then let's just say until the summer hits, and then they're out drinking, they're out eating whatever they want to, and whatever. Well, when someone does that in bodybuilding, like if they were competing for a show and they get lean, and then the show day happens, and then afterward they go and binge, people can gain like 10 to 15 pounds. Granted, it's water, it's not fat, but their body blows up like a balloon just in a matter of a couple hours.
They get that edema.
Yeah, because of that's an exaggerated example of a crash diet and then eating like crap.
Well, I could give you names, but I won't, of people that made it to the hospital.
Oh, yeah.
Because they gained so much water weight, it put too much fluid on their heart.
It's crazy. So that's just, remember that, again, whereas if you're eating healthy and your calories are good, you keep your metabolism high, and then, so you go to a barbecue, you're eating some pasta salad, you're having a burger, maybe a couple Coronas, you're not going to get that because your body's it's not that much shock to the system because your calories were, up, your metabolism's good. And yeah, you might hold a little bit extra water the next day, but you're going to pee it out and you're good to go. So think about that then when you are thinking of, what you want to do to get ready for summer.
So I was going to say, if you're planning your meals for the day, you want to make sure you have some type of protein, complete, or a food that would make it a complete protein at each meal that you have.
Yes. And then kind of rule of thumb is a gram of protein per pound of body weight. I think it's like because if you're overweight, then you don't want to eat that much. Like it's like wouldn't you say like the weight that you want to be at?
Right. If you weighed 220 pounds and you really wanted to weigh a buck 80, you should eat at least 180 grams of protein. Now, if you're 180 and you want to get up to 220, then I would increase my protein a little bit.
Yeah.
Where we like to usually have clients eat anywhere from 1 gram per 1.2 grams, pinch more sometimes, per pound of body weight. Now, that's divided up over your 3, 4, 5, 6 meals, whatever it is you eat.
And I would say number of meals. I would say what fits into well, there's a couple things I would touch on. One, how your digestive system is. Because if your digestive system's slow and you're going to eat 2 meals and you're going to try to shove all this food in all at one time, it's probably not going to go well and you're probably not going to feel very nice for a couple hours after that. So I would, really kind of keep that in the back of your mind when you're deciding, and how your schedule is. Because if you only have time to eat 3 meals and you see something online where it says, oh, you got to eat 6 meals to keep your metabolism going, no matter how hard you try, you're probably going to fail at that. And so like I would start at 3 and then I would slowly start to add some snacks in and then try to build up to that.
Right. And sometimes a good way to do that is put in a liquid meal. So whether you have a protein shake or whatever, that could be a meal 4 or a meal 5. But once again, what others said, I agree with totally. I know I have tried getting 6, 7, 8 meals in a day sometimes. Once again, in the competitive days.
It's
and
tough.
Sometimes, yeah, it just seems like all you're doing is eating well. How many times we would all go somewhere as a family and I'd have my Tupperware bowls. And
all the time. Like all the time.
And then what you got to be careful about is because if you eat too late at night, then it lays in your stomach all night and you don't get a good night's sleep. Now you've hurt yourself that way also, and that's another topic for another day.
Yeah, I will just throw like a little tidbit in there. If you do find yourself having to eat at night, I would definitely go for something lighter like fish as opposed to red meat, because red meat does take longer to digest. And again, when you sleep, you want all that. You don't want your body to be using up energy to digest your food. Did I say that funny? You want all that energy to go to like restoring all your systems and like restoring your brain, everything that your body goes through for sleep. And because you do restore, like all your organs kind of get, I don't know if the word restored, as you sleep and kind of cleaned out. So you want all that energy to go toward that, not digesting your food. So if you, let's just say, you're running, like your meals are behind and you're eating like within, 45 minutes of going to bed and it's later than usual, I would grab for something definitely on the lighter side.
Right. And once again, I would say it's better to miss a meal than overeat a meal.
True.
And that's coming from a dummy that's done both. But now it's like I always go, you know what? That meal isn't going to kill me that bad. I got more than enough nutrients in throughout the day.
Or in another thing too, like again, how you said like a liquid meal, you can throw back some amino acids. And because it tastes like, so it's not like a protein powder. So it's not like thick like that. So, because sometimes people say like the protein shakes kind of sit in their stomach. The amino acids, quickly digest. You don't even really, it's like you drink water. And we'll actually link 2 of the amino acids that we use with our clients in the comment section down in the video. So you guys, if you guys are interested.
Yeah, and these are ones we use ourselves. So
yes,
that's why there's other good ones out there.
Yeah, these are just ones that we're very familiar with. We know the owner of the one. We know that he definitely puts good
real
quality
ingredients.
He definitely takes a lot of pride in making sure his product is really good.
Right. Now, let's say now we've gotten the protein covered. So basically, once again, how many grams you need and what you're trying to do, gain weight, lose weight, maintain, whatever it may be. Now, another one that we want to touch on is fat.
Yes. And now that one was demonized in the past with fat. You know, everything was low fat in the 80s and the 90s.
Matter of fact, I'm going to stop you. I can remember when I grew up, we drank whole milk, which was so thick, and all of us were all healthy, and it made us grow as kids. And I remember the day my mom brought home skim milk for the first time. All 7 of us are sitting around the table, and it looked like water, and it tasted terrible.
That's so funny.
I remember having to sit there and not leave the table till you ate all your food and you drank your milk. And that seemed like the longest day. And that was all because they made skim milk.
That's so funny because I don't think I definitely did not grow up on whole milk because I grew up in the 80s when it was in the middle of the low fat, epidemic, I would call it, because now that we know what we know, it was definitely not a good call on the powers that be's part to take fat out of everything. Because it turns out it's very important for you and it does not make you fat and give you heart disease like they claimed it, whether that was on purpose or whether that was an oopsies. We misread the studies. We'll let you guys decide on that one.
Right, because now it's funny, a lot of stuff is coming out. How some reports were held back explaining the different things. And it's funny how, and I guess I'm going to just throw this out there now. All of a sudden, then cholesterol became a big thing.
Oh, yeah. And now it's starting to not be as bad, not the bad guy that they're saying, which again, they accidentally got that one wrong as well.
Right. Some studies are coming out now that people that are on cholesterol medicine, a lot of them end up getting Alzheimer's or dementia because they go, whoops, we forgot. What does the brain use as nutrients?
Yeah.
Fat. And when your body's shutting all that down, chemical-wise,
yeah,
now your brain's not getting the food it needs.
Well, your brain's mostly made out of cholesterol. They also don't tell you that. They skim over that. I don't even want to get mad because I get so pissed because I think that
details.
it drives me crazy because here's the thing. If the doctors came, when they come to see you, and they walk in the room and they're like, oh, by the way, we don't really know a lot about this, but we were told this and gave a disclaimer that they really don't know jack shit about what they're talking about. I would be okay with that because I'm okay, they're laying it all out there, but that's not how they do it. They claim that this is concrete proof and that they have all these reasonings behind why you need this and this is the best thing for you and the studies have shown that it's safe and there's no side effects and all of that is not true.
And that's the sad part. Yes. And I know now the question is, who do you believe? Are we telling you the truth? Are they telling you the truth? We're not doctors.
No.
But I do know when we talk to more doctors that aren't buying into the system, they're saying, yes, cholesterol is not that bad for you. And you got to be careful because if you do get it too low, and I might be off on this because I wasn't planning on talking about this, but it might buy you another, if you're on cholesterol medicine, it might buy you another 2 days on Earth.
I heard that, something like that, yeah. It's something minuscule.
Right, but you might be so miserable all the way leading up to that because I don't want to live with dementia or Alzheimer's if you don't know what's going on and everything else.
No, that would be terrible. And also, again, you don't have to believe us. You can believe any, I say you shouldn't believe anybody. You should understand how everything works and then make your own judgment call because
do your research. Check with other people.
Yeah, don't just, say, oh, the Alpha Male podcast said this. It must be true. Understand, why we're saying that cholesterol is, what our argument is against that it's not terrible. And then kind of do your own research or watch your friends that if they're on statins, are, after a couple years, is their memory starting to go a little bit? Are they...
And when I turned 49 or 50 many, many moons ago, they wanted to put me on cholesterol medicine. Well, said okay, tried it for a week and made me feel terrible. Went back to see the doctor. In a month, I quit taking it. He asked me if I'm doing everything. I said yes. They did my blood work. It came back. He goes, Greg, you're doing great. I go, oh, by the way, Doc, I didn't tell you the whole truth. I haven't been taking your cholesterol medicine. He looked at me. He didn't know what to say. And he finally just said, well, okay, keep doing what you're doing. But now, if I didn't feel bad right away, I would have probably kept taking it. And I'd probably be even more out of it than I am now. But once again, don't believe us, please. Do your research and talk to other people
Yeah,
and read.
well, and just to give you guys too a little something else to, because the cholesterol thing is a hot topic now because the doctors are being pushed to prescribe to like statins to everybody that meets a certain. All it is like they draw your blood and they look at your cholesterol number, and if it is a certain number, and it doesn't matter, they do not look at any other marker on those blood tests. It's just, is this number under this? And if so, or not under, I'm sorry, is it over this? And if so, you need a statin. And they talk it up. That's how this is being orchestrated and like worked.
And they put the fear in you.
Yes.
Which now you're worried because there you are sitting with your husband or your wife, and they're looking at you like, well, you got to take this. I want you around. But it's really, when you get that information, go talk to somebody else.
Yeah, and also understand what cholesterol is, because basically when your arteries have like little tears in them, and correct me again if I'm wrong, because I wasn't planning on talking about this either. But it lights me up when this stuff, because the more and more, I don't know, as I go through life, I'm realizing that the medical industry is not as reliable as we have been led to believe.
My throat
Yes.
will show you.
Yeah. So, prime example number one. And it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse with finding out that these doctors don't know, like I said, as much. They talk like they know everything and how your body works, but they don't. They just know if they know literally how to look at a piece of paper that has your lab results. Oh, this number is this, and this is a pill. Here you go. And that is how the medical community the medical industry has now become. But with that said, though, I do think we're slowly you're seeing an emergence of more alternative doctors and people that are really studying this, that aren't necessarily going through the traditional med school and getting an education in, functional medicine and finding out how the whole body works, as opposed to just, again, reading a number and giving a pill. But
well, I was just going to say, too, we're not telling you to go out and eat nothing but fat.
No.
We're just saying, don't be afraid of it. Now, just to give you an example, a little bit of my diet, I always try to, if I'm buying my red meat, I get grass-fed, which is a healthier meat. I try to get 90, 96% fat-free.
No, I get 85. I like the fat. I'm like,
yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that, because sometimes I got to buy that. But what I just do to make it a little bit less fat, I cook it some, drain the grease out, the fat, and then finish cooking it. And once again, whether it says 96, 90, 85, or whatever, that's their guesstimate. They got to be within a certain percentage of that.
True.
So, but don't freak out on it, because this is one thing, just an easy diet tip for you. Eat how you're eating. With the red meat or whatever it is you're doing. See how much you weigh after a couple weeks. Weigh yourself. If you want to lose weight, keep eating the same stuff, but cut back a little bit.
Yes. And what I would do, though, is I would do, again, correct me because you might have a different philosophy on this, but at like protein, which is kind of why we started with it, because we do believe it's the most important, that I would kind of keep as my staple. that's like the last thing to be touched, that number, because I would mess with my carbs first, and then I would mess with my fat, and then I would mess
I
with my
agree.
yeah. So keep that in mind too when
And that's where we'll go back to what we talked about with that 1 gram per pound of body weight.
yeah, I would keep
Because
that.
that could stay consistent throughout your whole.
Yes.
And I mean, if you're dieting for something specific, that's fine.
Yeah.
But we're trying to teach you too how to eat for life. This isn't
Correct.
just so you look good in your Speedos or your bikini.
Yes.
It's so that you continue to look good.
Well, because too, once you start messing with that protein number, your muscles are at risk. So that's what you have to like. Your carbs is gonna take the fat off because again, fat does not make you fat. I mean, unless like you're gorgeous, it's kind of like eating. It's like in the mix, like if you're overeating entirely, like yes, fat's gonna play a part in that, but
And part of that is just because it's more calorie dense.
correct. So, but your carbs are going to start to strip your fat off as you're taking the carbs out, and it's the same like as you're starting to take a little bit of the fat off, but you don't want to go too low in the fat.
To back you up 1 second, explain what carbs do.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, you know what? Okay, even before that, I want to go back. One more thing on fat with the cholesterol is because I want to explain why cholesterol became the villain that it was and is starting to not become because now everyone's starting to realize this is because when you start to have tears in your arteries and like damage in your arteries, cholesterol comes in to repair it. So what happens is when you have, so like if you had damaged arteries, they go to look and they say, oh, cholesterol's there. That must have been the cause of the damage when it's not. And I'm sure you guys might have heard this before in other, because it's, like I said, it's definitely starting to become a hot topic and I'm seeing it everywhere on Instagram, but it's true. That's like blaming the firemen for fires. They're the ones that are there to help and like fix, the house burning on fire. They're not the cause. So cholesterol is actually there to help your artery. So if you take that down, you're actually causing more damage. I don't want to say you're opening yourself up for damage happening and not being able to repair it properly. And that is why cholesterol is important to have. So again, you have these companies coming in, these pharmaceutical companies that are, have a statins for you and they package it up and then you see the commercials where people are super happy and because they're on it and living life and not having heart attacks and really, if you think about it, they're actually kind of making you more prone to them. So just keep that in mind. If you find yourself at the doctor, they run blood. Oh my God, you have your cholesterol up. And they also found out, and this is the last thing I'll talk about it. They have found that those that live longer, there's 2 things that they have in common that on people that live the longest. They believe in a higher power, whatever that happens to be, and they have high cholesterol levels. So take that as you will. Again, don't believe anything I have to say. Look it up. But a lot of shit, when you start digging in with stuff that was recommended by the health industry, it does not make sense. Unless you're trying to figure out like how they make money. That's the only part that makes sense. Like if I wanted to make billions of dollars, what lie would I tell? And that makes sense.
And I don't know if we should put this in there or not, but I was just thinking this is just a question. I wonder if our former president was on cholesterol medicine.
That's a good question. But wait, what are you talking about? He was completely sane and with it and could walk properly.
We won't touch there, but I'm just saying I would be very interested to see.
That's actually a really good question. I didn't even think of that. I can tell you what president is probably not on cholesterol medicine.
But moving along anyway with the fat, we think it should be part of it. And once again, with protein and carbohydrate, every gram is 4 calories. With fat, every gram is 9 calories. Mm-hmm. So that's why we say it's more calorie dense.
Yes. So so this actually if you're trying to gain weight, and so this we ran into this. One of my high school friends, unfortunately, he passed away from leukemia. Remember Matt? He had a hard time putting on weight or keeping on weight and putting it on. And the doctor, again, this is the doctor's wisdom. They told him to to eat sugar, which feeds cancer, by the way, okay? Sugar was the best thing for him to eat because is what put weight on the fastest, which I can't even wrap my mind around that answer. That was horrible. It should have been fat. Because you're going to have the most calories per gram, like good weight. We're not talking about sloppy fat weight. I mean, if you want to gain sloppy fat weight, eat Skittles. Yeah.
Up his body weight with protein and good fat to get his energy and his weight back up there with eating some good carbohydrates. But sugar is not the way to go.
No, not at all.
And that's why we're very sorry to say he didn't last very long.
Yeah. But so keep that in mind too, because unfortunately, with cancer on the rise, I think that you are seeing some people do struggle with keeping weight on, especially through chemo. And keep that in mind because you absolutely want to stay away from sugar if that's the situation. So I did want to just point that out too.
Now, with carbohydrates are great to help give you energy and all of that, which is very good. But now, on a side note, if you didn't take in any carbohydrates, your body could burn protein or fat.
Yeah.
That uses energy also.
And that's called ketosis, by the way.
Right. So
that's what like the Atkins diet is, like keto, things like that. That's like why they work.
Yeah, and we're not pushing those. I mean, those are good diets in themselves.
Mm-hmm. But really quick, though, I do want to say, with trying to find, and I think I've mentioned this in another podcast, but the ketogenic diet, the low carb diet, whatever Atkins diet, whatever one you want to pick, that does show the best results. However, you have to make sure you can follow that because it can also be very detrimental if you can't, and you're constantly going back and forth. Like if you're constantly falling off the wagon and like grabbing a donut every time they bring them in for, at the office and you're trying to follow keto, you're going to start putting on weight because your body's never going to get into ketosis and you're going to, keep kicking it out with these donuts. And then it's just going to be, and then like the fat does start to come into play because you're, increasing your calories and like it just kind of becomes a mess. So if I believe in the low carb diet, as the most effective, but you have to be very careful on who you tell to do it because again, it's like a blessing and a curse. Like you got to be careful.
And once again, I've said this and I know Heather has too. The only diet that's going to work for you is the one you're going to follow. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to give you guidelines you could set up that fits the diet for you. That's going to work the best because you're not going to be able to follow what I eat or Heather eats or some of our other clients or your spouse. But if you come up with something, a plan, what you're going to eat every day, what you're going to eat for the week. I mean, if you came down and looked at Michelle's in my refrigerator right now, I have meals set up for the next 3 days. And I'll be cooking more, or hopefully her, in the next day or two. So this way it'll continually have. Because once again, which I think we both have said, the worst thing to do is to come home and there's nothing there.
Yeah.
And you look at each other and you go on, what do you want to eat? And the easiest thing is, I mean, that's why they made McDonald's and Wendy's and all those places. I'm not a fan of those. I don't eat at those places, and I'm not telling you shouldn't. But if you have to, once again, you'd have to make good choices.
We do Chipotle. Yeah. And we'll do Five Guys every once in a while. But McDonald's, like Arby's, Burger King, I can't tell the last time.
It's been many years.
Taco Bell.
I've never eaten at a Taco Bell.
Really? That doesn't surprise me, but that's funny. Yeah, yeah. I was going to say, you took me through the drive-thru when we were at Indian Princesses sometimes, but I don't remember you ever getting anything.
That's because the Indian Princess food was worse than what Taco Bell was serving.
That's true. You guys used to tell us that it was made out of squirrels, like the burgers there, and like that's it. You guys refused all the dads.
That would have been healthier.
Yeah.
Squirrels. But do you want to explain real quick on carbs?
Yeah.
When we should do them and when.
So carbs are kind of the thing that, like we said earlier, like that's what you can kind of manipulate into your diet and kind of, there's times and places for them that they're the most beneficial. And then there's different like strategies that you can use to eat them throughout the week. So first, I'm going to give you a couple things, like some philosophies, and because this is all, it's like, even though they're contradicting, it's technically all right. So basically, to give you like an idea, and I'm trying to again explain this in like as layman terms as possible. So you have these little buckets in your muscles. And when you eat carbs, your body processes the carbs and they fill up your little buckets in your muscles. And, as much as they can, and anything in excess of that if you don't burn it up, it can be stored as fat.
The stuff that gets stored in your muscles is called glycogen.
Yes, glycogen, yeah. Or no, glycogen, that's how you pronounce it. I always mispronounce it, but
close enough.
Yeah. See, this is why we don't use medical terms on the show. So when you work out or after you sleep, all that gets depleted because that's what your body uses as energy. So it dumps out all that stuff in the buckets in your muscles. So now you have empty buckets. So you can use, like when you eat carbs, if you eat them right when you wake up in the morning or right after you're done lifting, it fills up those little buckets, and you're less likely to store any excess carbs or like any of those carbs, as long as you don't go overboard, as fat. So
right. The problem is if you put too much in those buckets.
Yes.
The buckets don't empty out. It ends up on your bucket.
Yes.
And that's where the body fat comes in.
Yes. So you want to use the correct amount and at the right times, because then it's more utilized like for body performance, as opposed it's less likely to get stored as fat.
I was going to use as an example. Today was leg day for me. So that's a very strenuous lifting day. So I had some carbs in the morning with my protein about 2 hours before I lifted. Right when I was done lifted, I had some fast-acting dextron, which is a carbohydrate, mixed in with some protein. And then about an hour and a half after that, I had some more carbohydrate and protein. And now I'll taper off my carbs as the day goes on because I've used to repair what I needed to repair.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I feel like I'm going to have a taste for something this week that might not be the greatest, today would be the day I eat it because I've burned up so many calories.
Yes.
Now.
And you want to eat them, you want to eat that after you're done working out,
right.
Not before.
Right. Well, yeah, because then you're not going to work out too much.
Yeah. Well, so here's also a thing. So and this is where you come into conflicting information. So in which it's not that one person's right and one person's wrong. It matters on what kind of works, because everything with like this, and this is why I think it's so important to understand the whys, is because everybody's different. Everyone's a little different. So you do something different than what I do. Whereas I so carbs will suppress cortisol levels. So in the morning, if you're having...
I'm going to explain cortisol real quick.
Okay, yeah. So cortisol is your stress hormone, and it goes up. It's kind of what wakes you up in the morning, and then it tapers down at night. Well, sometimes people's circadian rhythms all off, because that's what kind of controls, it controls a few different hormones, but your cortisol levels are one of them. And so if somebody is, kind of feeling groggy in the morning, having trouble getting up, getting out of bed, you don't want to eat carbs in the morning because it'll suppress any cortisol that you have, because your cortisol is spiking at the wrong times. And especially if somebody has low cortisol in the morning and high cortisol at night, when it should be the opposite. And with all kinds of, technology nowadays, everything, all kinds of stuff can, like the LED lights that they were trying to make everybody have in their homes, all this stuff kind of messes with these circadian rhythms. And so with someone like that, if you're having, again, trouble, if you're having trouble getting up in the morning and you're having trouble sleeping, what I would actually suggest is no carbs in the morning and actually carbs in your last meal, because that's going to suppress your cortisol that's like erroneously spiking, and bring that down so you're going to be able to sleep better.
No, those are very good points. And once again, I bet you if you asked a medical doctor that, they go, what?
But they have a pill for that. So don't worry about it.
That's right. It's a sleeping pill.
Yeah, but that's why when most people, when they get stressed, they want carbohydrates. It's because it's like your body wanting to like bring down your cortisol levels. So that's why you crave carbs.
Those are very good points on that.
But so with that, like you said, so like, again, morning, like, and then I would also eat a little bit of carbs especially if you're doing arms, you probably don't need that many carbs before your workout, but like just to give you like a little bit of energy too as you're working out. So like I would say again, if it's leg day, you might want a little bit more, but again, it also depends on how many carbs, like you eat yours if you're eating yours for breakfast, some carbs in the morning, you might not need as many before your workout because you kind of have, you've already had some. Whereas like me, I don't eat carbs in the morning. So like I might have a little bit right before I go to lift. But I'm talking like like women, like 15 grams, I'd say.
Yeah, once again, the carbohydrates are there to give you energy. If you overeat them,
yeah,
they will get stored as fat.
Yes.
And I sometimes think they call the things the wrong way, where they should have called fat carbohydrates.
Oh, yeah.
And carbohydrates fat, because the too many carbs will definitely, with the sugars and all that stuff like that, definitely lead. And once again, I know a lot of times people come to us and they want to gain weight. And, the easiest thing for me to do is to give you more carbs, because for every gram of carb, you hold 4 grams of water.
Mm-hmm. So it's like fake weight, yeah.
Right. So you don't want to get real watery and all that. So that's why you got to do it gradual.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise you're just putting on fluid, and fluid isn't muscle.
Yeah. And not to mention, I would say carbs are probably the biggest culprit of inflammation in somebody's body. Like meat doesn't really inflame people. Fat doesn't, unless it's canola oil and like seed oils and stuff like that. That's a different. When we're talking, to back up to fat, we're talking about like good fat. So like avocados, avocado oil, olive oil, coconut oil. I mean, I even will eat some like duck fat and stuff that I'll like macadamia nut oil, grass-fed butter, like that kind of stuff. Canola oil, forget about it. That's terrible. Or margarine, that's not on the list.
And that's another one they brought in when they got rid of old milk. Mm-hmm. They brought margarine in.
Yeah.
And once again, people started having heart attacks and all this other stuff. Once again, I don't know if it's just misinformation or maybe to make some money.
Yeah.
But something sure happened. And now people are getting away totally from margarine, which is good.
Yeah. Oh my God, I remember eating that as a kid. Wasn't that like country crock in that like grayish brown tub?
You gotta blame your mother.
I know. Thanks, Mom. But no, and like it's just crazy to think about that. Like back in, like I remember all that stuff from the 80s. Like everything was low fat. And they replaced the fat with sugar, is what they did.
Right. Where?
Because it was tasting, the stuff was tasting terrible when you took the fat out. Things taste phenomenal when there's fat in them.
And then you gotta wonder, why has the body weight's gone up so much?
Okay, you can go back and literally, like, as soon as they introduced and claimed that fat was the culprit of heart disease, and they replaced, like, they took the fat out of everything and put sugar in, all of a sudden obesity went. Like, when you look at old pictures from like the 70s on the beach, no overweight people. Everyone's nice and tanned, toned, living life. And I'm going to bet like nobody cared about diets. Like there was no talking about diets like back in the day. Nobody had to. Now, I mean, you have to have like 6 and 7-year-olds on an eating plan because it's I don't know, whatever. It's just crazy. I just have my very strong opinions on the whole matter. I think everything's done on purpose.
Well, it sure seems like
Because
it.
there's no way that much, like, how did these idiots go to the top? Like, I don't know. You have to be so stupid to not be able to make these correlations when looking back. And they literally see studies and they're like, oh, this one we're just going to pretend never happened. And then this one, oh, that's sponsored by Country Crock, is saying that margarine's better. This must be true. I don't get it.
Yeah, and not the, no offense, country.
Sorry.
Right.
But actually, shame on you. You made a terrible product.
Well, but anyway, now you have the 3 macros. I hope we broke it down a little bit for you now. As far as how many carbohydrates should you have, I bank that on your energy level for the day. And are you trying to gain weight, lose weight? Because remember, if your body doesn't have enough carbohydrates for energy, then it's going to go to stored body fat. To break that down, it uses energy.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're trying to lose that extra 10, 20, 30 pounds, you want to put yourself in a little bit of a deficit.
Yeah, well, and I also think it depends again on the person. Like this goes into like self-experimentation with it. I do not do well on high carbs. It doesn't matter. I mean, I could be running a marathon and I can't. I gain weight very easily on carbs, so I always tend to stay on the lower carb side, which is also what, like, when you're trying to figure out your numbers, if you are staying high with your carbohydrates, you want your fat on the like a little lower. Again, like, you shouldn't be going super low on your fat ever. So like there's always, like there's a good
Because that helps with your hormones also.
Yeah, your
Being a guy or a gal.
Yeah, we forgot to say that. Like, fat plays a role in like hormone production. So you don't want to go too low with that. So like if these are like kind of, what is it, like inversely proportion? I don't know like the exact word, but it basically, they like, if one's high, you want to keep the other one on the lower end, and then if one's low, you want to keep, then you can go higher on the, so like if your carbohydrates are low, then you can keep your fat high, which is, I eat a lot less carbs than you do, and that's why I'm reaching for the 85% ground beef, and I don't care. So that's
Right.
like the difference.
And once again, whether you're trying to lose, gain weight, this is what you want to play with. And once again, gradually doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So you follow it. I know a lot of our clients we work with, it's funny. They lose weight, or they gain muscle. And all of a sudden, when they don't send us in their diet for the week or that day, you could kind of tell they've fallen off for a second. And you know what we always say? It's not the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you hit a bump in the road. Now get back on it. Because what you have is what you got for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And this is why it's so important for you to take care of it.
Absolutely. And like, it's very different if, like, let's just say, you're training for a bodybuilding competition, you have 12 weeks of a crazy restrictive diet. And so if you mess up, it's like, dude, get your shit together. Like, you cannot be messing up. You only have 12 weeks, a short period of time. Whereas like, what we're talking about is like your lifestyle eating. You're supposed to have, like, too many people, I think, like, let's just say they're like, okay, we're going to clean up our diets, like this is the eating plan we're on, and then there's a barbecue. Then it's like, oh my God, I failed. And then but it's like, that should be looked at as part of your lifestyle eating. So, okay, I have this barbecue on Saturday. Well, I'm going to lower, maybe my calories the day before a little bit, and I'm going to work out before. And now it's not a failure. You adjusted your lifestyle eating, because it sounds dumb, like, but how you think of that, I think, can be detrimental to your eating goal, like, or in your eating plan, your body goals, everything. Because anytime you look at something as a failure, what happens is, like, at that barbecue, you're going to stuff your face because you're pissed that you failed.
Right, you're depressed.
Yeah. And then after the barbecue, you're probably going to eat some more because, you got to get it in, because it's, it's like you get a free 24 hours. And it's like, you could have just went there, ate some extra pasta salad, and moved on. Like, and it could have fed your muscles because you did the workout before, and all's well. Like,
right. And one of the things, tidbits I know we always give our clients is when you're going to something like that, go fill up your plate with all the good things first.
Mm-hmm.
Eat that.
But like when you say good things, you're not talking about like good tasting, like
No, I'm
the
talking
cakes and
about
stuff.
your
Yeah.
protein
Yes.
and good stuff like that. Let it digest a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Drink some water.
Yeah. Don't reach for the cake first.
Right. Because this way then, when you go to have the dessert, you're a little bit full already.
Mm-hmm.
So that piece you get is a little bit smaller.
Yes.
And eat it. If that goes down and you feel fine, go ahead and have another 2 or 3 cookies or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But if you start out putting that big, huge piece of cake on the plate and you spike that sugar,
Yeah. Game over.
right, get out of the way because that's all you're going to be shoveling in because your body's going to crave it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I like, I forget who I had gotten it from, was if you're going to have a junk out meal, have it be your last meal of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got to go to bed.
Yeah.
And you can't continue it for the next 3 or 4 or 5 meals.
Yeah, because it's tough if you have your breakfast be a cheat meal because that kind of just snowballs the whole rest of the day. Because I've seen so many.
Feel lazy and tired.
Yeah, and I've seen so many people just have the littlest slip up, and then the whole day's derailed just because they just think, might as well. Well, I already screwed up. It is what it is. So we do not recommend that.
No. I hope this is helping everybody to follow along what we're trying to make it as simple as possible and make it as human as possible. Because I know a lot of you are married, you have spouses, you have kids, and and that's one thing too. I mean, we taught our kids how to eat.
Yeah.
And so they can make wise choices. I mean, now they're all grown, and so they think.
Yeah. Get there.
But, now it's on them, but they can never say they didn't know how to eat properly or how to make decisions.
When we would have dinner, you used to make us show you what the protein was, what was the carbs was, and we had to eat all the protein. We didn't have to eat all the carbs if we didn't want it. And obviously, like the vegetables, we had to eat all the way. But I think it's important to teach.
Child brutality.
Yeah, it was. It was torture. And that's why Jamie threw his eggs down the heat vent or whatever, and his Flintstone vitamins. He couldn't take the torture. But no, I think it's so important to teach your kids that because the school system doesn't do it. And maybe one day they will, but but I just look at my friends, I was one of the only ones that knew how to eat, and I got into different, I hate to say dieting because I wasn't dieting as a teenager. I was just trying out different ways of eating.
Right.
Like the low carb, the Mediterranean. I knew I would read all those books. I just understood it. So looking back, that was such a benefit to me, especially as I get older, because I know all this and I know how to maintain my body. And I think that so many people, especially my age, that didn't learn that feel very out of control and they don't know what to do. And just now they're starting to learn and understand it all. We had the food pyramid back in the day, which was again, don't even get, I remember back when I had health class, I had to raise my hand and tell the teacher, that is not true. This food pyramid is backwards. And he got very mad at me. And because that was his lesson for the day. But I'm this is bullshit. You're telling us we have to eat a lot of bread. Do you know what that does? And I knew that as a teenager because I read, had read the Atkins diet and the Mediterranean diet and all that. And to recommend, I think it was 8 servings of bread or something. It was something so stupid, so crazy. And meat was a little part of the triangle. And I'm these guys need to be reversed.
Right, and it just reminds me when I had to go to the hospital and have my surgery for this, where I had lost almost 60 pounds.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And they wanted to feed me Ensure in my feeding tube and something else.
Which is terrible for you.
Right, it's all sugary stuff. No offense, but it is.
Yeah, there's way better products out there.
Right. Well, luckily my doctor, my surgeon, a great guy, he wrote me a script that I could get essential amino acids and put it in my feeding tube. Within the 4 or 5 days I was there in the hospital, I gained back almost 10 pounds. And my recovery, they were so amazed at how quickly it was coming. And the dietitian, she couldn't understand why, because I was only supposed to eat X number of grams of protein, 150, where you're talking about a 200 plus pound man.
Yeah, doesn't make sense. Like the math
Right.
doesn't math.
And she was a very nice woman, but once again, she was taught incorrectly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we want to make sure we get this out to you guys so you understand why we're not here selling you a product.
No. Like, and the amino acids that we're going to link, like, we have no financial benefit to them. We just know how hard it is to find a good product. So we might as well pass on the good information. So, and anything that we do get a financial kickback, we definitely disclose. I hope one day we do get a financial kickback, because that would be fantastic.
Nice.
Yeah, so we're definitely going to try that. But we do not believe in suggesting products, even if they paid us a lot of money, that are crap. So also there's that.
And we have tried a lot of products over the years,
Yes.
which we will talk about throughout this.
Yes. One thing I do want, before we wrap up, because we did talk about it briefly at the beginning, was alcohol, which is our little asterisk macro. We do want to say that alcohol, and we can be brief on this because there's not really a lot to say on alcohol because it's not good for you. It does give you, because a lot of people don't understand, like, calorically, what does it do? Because there's no nutrition facts on it, and alcohol has been able to not have to put anything on their labels. Again, I'm not sure.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of lobbying behind that. But basically, alcohol has 7 calories per gram. So the thing with alcohol, which makes it a little unique, is that, like, your alcohol, since it is a poison to you, your body has to burn it off quickly, like the very first thing. So let's just say, you drank all day, or you drank at night, woke up and worked out. Well, you might be thinking, oh, I'm burning all these calories off at the gym. You're burning alcohol. So there's no fat loss that can be done until all that alcohol is burned off. So it basically inhibits your fat loss or any goals until that's all, because that makes it, like, your body puts it as priority number 1 on it. So now beer obviously has carbs in it. So, like, I think beer is one of the worst things, especially for men, because it's estrogenic. Like, it's not great. I hate to break it to people.
Just explain that real quick with the estrogenic.
Yeah, so it would I think it is it how they make the beer? Is it like the hops? I'm not exactly sure.
I believe so. I'm not a drinker, so I'm
Yeah.
the wrong person.
There's something in it, I can't remember, but it's the what makes, like, beer. It's not the alcohol that is the estrogenic.
The wheat or whatever.
Yes.
The grain.
Yes. And so that's why it's bad. Whereas I don't recommend women either drinking beer. I think that's, like, bottom on the list. The reality is people drink alcohol, especially in the summer. It tends to, be more. So my tip would be, with all of, like, the seltzers that are, I shouldn't even say seltzers, because some of them are mixed with, what's it called? Tonic water, or what's the other one? Or club soda, I think it is, whatever it is. But I would go for the ones that are mixed with water. So it's water flavoring and some vodka. That, I think, is the cleanest thing. Or tequila is supposed to be a good option. Again, I would stay away from anything that's, like, super sweet. Even, like, the vodkas that are, I had a friend that was in the liquor business, and he said, if you pour some of the alcohol, especially, like, the flavored stuff, on your hands, and, like, it dries and it's sticky, he's like, there's sugar in that, even though they don't put it on the label. So if it's, you don't want,
learned something new.
Yeah. So I would stick with, like, the clear alcohols or the tequilas, and mix it with something that is, like, even like water and a lemon. It's hydrating, because that's another thing you have to worry about when you're drinking, is dehydration. That's probably the best option. I'm a red wine lover, so I'll always claim that it is higher on the list, because I don't want to give it up. but like a dry red wine as opposed to a sweeter one is better. And that's kind of like the rule of thumb that I would, if you're, a beer, if you just love beer, because I don't think you should ever cut out anything in your life that you truly love. But I mean, do you really love like Natty Light that much? Probably not. But like if you're into like IPAs and things like that, like I understand, but try to limit them and like drink them on occasion. And if you want to get a buzz going, if you're going out boating or whatever, like I said, I would stick to those like vodka water drinks. And there's so many, they kind of exploded on the market, which is, good from a waistline perspective. I would say they're definitely replacing like the heavy beer consumption. So
Well, I'm glad you did that because
yeah,
I have no knowledge of that.
that's my
whatsoever.
little alcohol thing, because I do think it trips people up a lot. And I would also like, if you're going to be going out, like, let's just say you're going on a boat all day Saturday, you're going to be drinking all day. Again, I would cut your carbs out maybe 1 or 2 days before that, just because, to get yourself in a little bit of a calorie deficit.
Lower them down, yeah.
Yeah. Again, if you can get a workout in, that's great. And make sure you eat a decent meal before you go, because then you're not hungry.
So protein.
Yeah, and you might not be drinking as much, and you're not going to get as wasted, as opposed to if you go on an empty stomach, and you're going to make better food decisions. So,
Sounds good.
yes.
Well, I hope this helped you today. And once again, if you have any questions,
Yeah, definitely email us at info@thealphamalepodcast.com. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
and thank you very much for listening.
Yes, we'll see you next time, guys.